If you're looking for a practical way to prepare yourself and your family to serve your community during a disaster, you're going to want to stick around for this video. Hi, my name is Alina from thehonestguest.com, and I recently got the opportunity to attend a virtual CERT course right here in Trinidad, and I want to share my experience with you. In this video, I'm going to talk about what is CERT, how I found out about the program, what the course has in it, the online experience, and the assessment. So CERT stands for Community Emergency Response Team, and it was founded by the Los Angeles Fire Department in 1986 and then later taken over by FEMA in 1994. CERT started in Trinidad in 2010 under the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. It's being funded by the USAID Humanitarian Assistance Capacity Building Initiative Project Phase 3 and is being carried out by the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross. And it aims to train 10% of our population, that's 140,000 of us, by 2025. But here's the catch. They claim that it's the first virtual CERT training course in the Western Hemisphere. Okay, so how did I find out about this course? I had previously taken a course hosted by the Red Cross in conjunction with the same Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government for shelter managers, especially with the new regulations for COVID-19. So after being added to their WhatsApp group for my regional corporation in Tunapuna, Piako, there was an ad for CERT training. So they recommended households of at least 3 persons, and they also required you to be in good physical fitness, something I didn't appreciate until later. So before being eligible to register, you had to do a prerequisite course with FEMA, then submit the certificate for that course before being registered to do it locally. So these prerequisites are free courses offered by FEMA. The course we were instructed to do was Introduction to Community Emergency Response Team, and it was pretty straightforward to run through the content and submit the certificate at the end. So after emailing the certificate, there was just one Google form to fill out, and then we got an email with the Zoom links to start classes. So the training was run in 8 sessions over 2 weekends. So that means there were 2 sessions per day. And the courses covered, it's standard across the board, and there are tons of other YouTube videos that talk about content. So there's disaster management, fire safety, medical operations, 1 and 2 treatment and triage, team organization, light search and rescue, disaster psychology, and CERT and terrorism. But the biggest takeaway for me for this course was the personal application and the structured approach to preparing my household for a variety of disasters. It caused me to look at the trends within the country and even locally in my community and take steps to systematically guard against magnitudes of potential disasters. Disaster psychology, as the name suggests, spoke about the varying types of mental impacts that both the CERT team as well as the casualties and victims of disasters may go through. And to me, this was the most meaningful session, with the focus on mental health in all sectors of society, from workplaces go right back to the public domain. This really gave an understanding of how to respond to somebody who is going through, who's just experienced loss of a loved one, loss of belongings, even somebody who is in extreme physical pain, the things to say, the things not to say, just basically how to deal with them, and also how to care for yourself when having to deal with situations like this. So the online experience, I mean, this is my first time ever doing CERT, and I think it lasts for 2 years, and then it expires and you probably have to retrain. But what the trainers have been saying all along is that this is a very hands-on course, it's a very practical course, and I think even for them it was a big adjustment from how they usually run the course, with demonstrations and involving the participants, to sitting behind a computer and demonstrating with each other to us. So initially, up to I think before the medical ops class session, there was an assumption that the CERT participants would have been able to use the people that they would have agreed to do the course with, because I mean, when we look at earlier on, we see that they encourage families and groups to do it because it's a team effort. So that they thought that while they were explaining, a group of people would have been behind a device in the same room, tying bandages, putting on gloves, doing the lifts, simulating at that point in time, but that wasn't the case for a lot of people. So I think there was a little gap there. Definitely something that could impact. So I mean, even within the context of a virtual session, the training took the form of a webinar on Zoom. So I mean, as you know, with a webinar, you don't have the capabilities to audibly speak or to turn on your camera. So any question that you would have had to ask would have been in the question and answer segment or in the chat section. A lot could be lost in trying to type a message, but I understand the benefits on their end for a webinar format. I mean, your random person muted microphone wouldn't disturb the entire class. I mean, that is highly annoying, cameras and all these other different devices sucking up bandwidth, all of that other stuff. So we also didn't know who was in class with us. So I guess the first time we'll be meeting would probably be at a simulation, or even at being called out to respond to a disaster. But that's just one of the drawbacks of the virtual platform, another one of them. But in the same breath, I will say this. The use of the poll feature in Zoom was really, really effective for review. And there was a striking difference for facilitators that utilized the poll as a review to the start of another one, to review the course before, as compared to those who just called the questions out and we had to respond in the chat section. It got a little messy and confusing. So definitely a little more use of the polls would have been really good for reviews. So this point is not quite linked to the online experience, but it's linked to the course overall. You were forced to pay attention, because if you sat with the manual in front of you, or you didn't even open the manual and you thought, I'll read that later, I have the information accessible to me, you were wrong. There was a slight variation and probably a little more information on the slides than in the manual. So it forced you to probably take notes or pay more attention to the content of the lesson. So that was definitely, I think, something in or out of the classroom that you would have had to pay attention to. So, I mean, with all online virtual training and sessions, it requires a measure of discipline. I think when you're in a classroom setting, you have a little more motivation because you're in a space with like-minded individuals, people who are eager and as ambitious as you to get information. So it really requires you to dig deep to really get and glean, to stay off of social media, to stop yourself from, if you're on a computer, to open that new tab, to just search on Amazon for something. I mean, I did all of the above. And I think I also relied on the fact that the recorded sessions were made available to us, which it would have really benefited those who couldn't attend in person. But again, that's just a natural drawback of a virtual session. So here's another thing with the online platform. There was a heavy reliance on the participant to have certain resources, especially manpower. So I mean, apart from the motivation aspect of it and the classroom setting of it, there was a real resource restraint. And I think it suffered. I could only speak from my experience. It suffered in terms of when I needed to do the assessments, and even working with my volunteers, which were my family members, who were not in the course with me. So me as a novice having to explain to them how to do a lift and how to help me do certain things, and I want you to do this and I want you to do that. I can't claim to know it all when I'm trying to make a video about it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I still think that if I was the one being coached into doing a certain lift of a person or wrapping a bandage in a certain way, I'm still open to correction from a facilitator. And I think that in this case is really, really critical, because the first time I may interact with somebody, especially what COVID has caused us to do, may be in a disaster. There is talk of having a simulation, but as far as with lockdowns and all of those other things, it's going to be a virtual one. And I'm going to still have to sit behind my screen and look at other experienced CERTs do what they have to do. It's not tactile, it's not tangible. And that is a big thing for me. I felt like I've lost so much. Don't get me wrong. The training, the content, all of that was excellent. But just doing this type of course virtually, I think I mightn't be the only one experiencing that issue. So you would have heard me mention that there is an assessment. Yes. And it's not just one assessment. One part of the assessment consists of about 42 multiple choice questions. It's an open book exam. It was pretty straightforward. I can't remember what the passing grade was. I think it was 85. Don't quote me. The other part of the assessment was demonstrating these core skills and competencies that they would have spoken about. So even in the initial email and the initial ad that I read, I saw that they would have had to test these 15 different competencies. And there was a list of items that we needed to have gotten beforehand. Again, some of them were pretty straightforward. We had to make a fire extinguisher. We had to show how we took off gloves, bandaging a wound, using a tourniquet, jaw thrust, recovery position, applying rigid splint, soft splint, arm slings, 2 triage type scenarios. So that's basically like medical ops, except for the fire extinguisher. Now, the fire extinguisher, we just had to research a fire extinguisher that we made with vinegar and baking soda. In the real world, I don't know how applicable PAS is to a homemade fire extinguisher. There's no pin to pull, there's no nozzle. I mean, you still have to aim the bottle in the direction. Yeah. I mean, it's better than nothing. It ticks a box, right? But in terms of applicability to using the real thing, I don't know, but they know why they put it there. And the remainder of videos that we had to make were room search with a buddy, and the rest of them were lifts. And there was a disclaimer: if you couldn't do the lift, just demonstrate how you would position or what you would do. Just talk them through it. This is good because in reality, you are going to have some volunteers that are not physically able, even in a team setting, to perform a lift. So maybe they would be more focused in another area, perhaps not search and rescue. But again, yes, I understand why the skill needs to be there. But it just brings me back to my my original point, that I have had to deal with persons who didn't go through the course and didn't go through all the steps in it, and trying to explain to them, and it was a lot. 19 videos to submit. It was a lot to do. The benefit of it is, I think, when you do anything for a video, or what I've found is, when you look back on the video, you are able to spot errors. If you do something live, it's usually in somebody's memory and they remember the version of it they want to remember. But when something is recorded, it adds some sort of archival sort of a thing to it that drives you. When you look back at it, you immediately spot errors and you want to redo it and redo it again. So it caused me, and this is the trade-off, it caused me, when I look back at it, or even when my family members would say, no, you forgot the step or whatever, because they were genuinely trying to help, it caused me to do better and to put something out there that was better. And I think that I actually may remember more, because I'm comparing this to first aid courses that I would have taken in the past that had, okay, demonstrate CPR, and I would have had to go and talk about it, and it was nothing to perfect really in a in-person first aid course in that context. But with this, it's going on a video. You want to make sure that you've covered all your bases. So yes, it did cause me to remake some videos, to do practice runs, and the repetition at the end of the day was something really effective. Yeah, I really did forget to tell you what the rest of the lifts were. So 1-person carry, pack strap carry, 2-person carry from the floor, chairlift, log roll, blanket carry, and blanket drag. But you know what this made me realize? People are heavy. I mean, I just had my father and my brother helping me, and COVID didn't do us well, you know. We just sit down at home like some broiler chickens, just gaining weight this entire time. And people aren't heavy. Just, yeah, that wasn't cute. So at the end of the day, you see the value of learning these skills, because CERT volunteers in a nationwide disaster really could support our full-time first responders. We act as a middle ground. We essentially become first responders, because the authorities can't get to where we are. We might be locked in and marooned, and these little skills that we have could potentially save someone's life. Not saying go out there and be a hero, but I could definitely see, at least it's channeled my attention in another direction to think about things differently. And I mean, for people, I could definitely see for people who are into EDC, everyday carry, and bug out bags, and doomsday preppers, and that type of people, that CERT is definitely for you. So with all that said, does it mean that I'm a CERT? As of right now, no. We have, I think the video submissions are still undergoing some assessments. It's early November right now. We were due to have a CERT simulation this weekend, but that was postponed until the end of November, because there is bad weather that the authorities are on standby for. So I think when all of that is done, we'll see. So that's it for me for now. Stick around for another video where I review this. What is this? This is CERT's first aid kit. Yeah, I bought one. I'm going to unbox it and I'm going to compare it with items that you could get in Pennywise. Let's do a cost comparison to see if I spent my money wisely. So stick around for that. So guys, this is my first YouTube video. Thank you so much for sticking with me till this point of the video. I mean, as most YouTubers do, like, comment, subscribe. Do that if you want to. I personally think it's nagging people. But definitely at least leave a comment so I'll know if it's made an impact. If you want more information on the CERT course, anything of that nature, That's the only way I'll know what content to produce. So until next time, bye.